name is Jesus Perez. I'm the director of the Immigrant Student Success Office here at Brooklyn College. Our job is to make sure that we provide information for immigrant students who are thinking about coming to college, how to finance their education, and ultimately about building a structure within Brooklyn College to support immigrant students. So to us, immigrant students are any students who may be undocumented, who may have TPS, they may be refugees, asylees, they may be first generation students, and any other student that may identify as immigrant, or any student who needs to build community. We open our doors to make sure that we also invite allies to be part of our office, and just have a safe space for students to be able to get the resources they need to apply to college, to fully navigate the college and graduate. And then the latest part that we are making a focus on is to make sure that the students receive the necessary information and training for them to get a job or continue on to postgraduate education if they wish to go get a master's or go for a PhD. And they should get all that information as they're finishing their undergrad degree. I would like to clarify is that international students are the only ones that we feel we don't have a mission to support because they have their own office. So we kindly guide them to the international student office for any resources, and also because being an international student really requires that they follow a certain pathway and certain guidelines, and we don't want in any way to jeopardize their status. So we definitely just refer them. But otherwise, I would say that many of the immigrant students share the same common needs, right? And it's the lack of information on how to navigate the system, the lack of resources, and in particular for undocumented students is the need for legal services, right? So we provide those things. So for my goal is we need to build a space, and we need to build the knowledge that this office exists. And how do we support those students? We reach out to them from the moment they're applying. So I make it our business from this office, and I have a wonderful program coordinator that works in this office that helps me coordinate the students on campus and work with the students in the high schools to make sure that we're able to start the conversation. So I call that a conversation and an accompaniment for the journey, the educational journey. So we first let them know that we exist. Getting undocumented students to know that college is an option, it's the first step. And it's important because many of them feel that they're not going to be allowed to go to college, right? I often talk about the story of a student who finds out they're undocumented when they're asked to fill out a FAFSA form, when they're asked for the social security number, right? So at that moment, the world comes down thinking, oh, I cannot go to college. So letting them know, yes, college is for you. You're not only going to be able to go to college, apply to college, but we have resources for you. So getting the word out is essential for us to continue with the rest of our job, right? So if we don't have them here, we already failed. So part of the mission of the office is to do the work with admissions and recruitment to let them know. So I work very closely with our admissions office. I work very closely with the CUNY Welcome Center. And, I don't know if you're aware that we have a CUNY-wide director of undocumented students. So with Cynthia Carvajal at CUNY Central, we're able to coordinate with the liaisons in each campus to collaborate. I have to admit it, and I'd be fully transparent that I received tons of support from the John Jay Center. They were the first center that opened to support undocumented students. So when we opened in 2019, they had already been in business. I believe for 12 to 18 months. So when I reached out to get some guidance on the things that we were doing here, it was without hesitation that was given some information. This is what we're doing. You may want to adapt it to your campus. But it's been like that for the support across the other places that want to open up centers. We want to be able to open up how we did it. And we understand that each campus has its own culture, right? So it has to be implemented within the hierarchy and within the administration of each campus, but with the full acknowledgement that we want to place our students at the center, build the trust for them to know. In my case, I feel that the conversation begins with the students and their families, where we see the student as a person inside of our institution as a student, but also to see the person as an individual outside in the community, right? That has other needs. So it wasn't enough for us to say, you know what, there is New York State DREAM Act. You could have financial aid, But we also have to say, you may want to know if there is, any possibility for you to adjust your status. You may want to consider whether there will be any way that we can work with your DACA situation. You don't have DACA, what can we do to work with your status? Because that impacts the education structure, right? How you're going to follow that plan really stems from the reality of that student. So building the trust, getting to know them early facilitates for us to onboard them when they get here. So we participate in recruitment, in orientation with student affairs when they get here. One of the things that we struggle every semester is to make sure that students know how to apply for in-state tuition. Because, that's the first blow they receive, like, oh, you're international. Oh, you're going to pay out-of-state tuition. And that can also scares them, right? So say, no, we're going to fill out the affidavit. We're going to fill out that you have your 2 years or more of high school, or you did the GED, and now we're going to apply for the New York State DREAM Act. And then we're going to go and say, oh, let's see how your classes are going. Or you're having problems with registration. Let's facilitate that conversation just to let them know that they're not alone. Start off from that process, and then connecting them, like you mentioned, to all the resources that exist at Brooklyn College. So I always I collaborate closely here at Brooklyn with the SEEK program, with the Black and Latino Male Initiative, with the Women's Center, with the LGBTQ Center, because I tell them that you are a student in the Immigrant Student Success. We call them scholar. You're a scholar in our program. However, you are a Brooklyn College student first. You could be in the Honors Academy. You could be in Macaulay Honors. You could be in any other programs that exist at the college. We're just here to elevate you, and then you choose where you want to fly. I want them to become involved in student government. I want them to be able to connect to the departments. I want them to build relationships with faculty. So we become facilitators in getting those conversations started. One of the main aspects of this center is that faculty were key components in the creation of the center. So we have an Undocumented committee that is led by faculty and staff across the campus, right? So with their presence in the office, right, they're able to work with students and mentor the students. We have some students doing research. We have some students, getting to know how to get to grad school, how to apply for law school. We have an amazing person that works over at the library that's able to facilitate information about applying for grants and scholarships, right? So it is this community that we aim to build that kind of makes the job possible. And it makes it for our students to know that they belong and they have someone here for them. Normalizing the conversation is key. My mission and the mission of Leslie, who's the program coordinator, is to normalize the conversation about undocumented students. So that means, as you mentioned, like Albert does, right? Facilitating undocumented trainings and informing every corner of the college. And I literally mean every corner of this college, from the president down to the work studies, right? For them to know what an undocumented student needs, and for them to understand what it means to be an undocumented student may change how they facilitate information to people. The number one thing that we always want to tell our staff is that you don't have to know somebody's status. Nobody has to disclose their status. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't ask that question because it's illegal, right? You cannot ask that question. But you should be able to give information that a student who may be undocumented will benefit from. And you start off by saying, yes, we have financial aid for all students, and you can have federal aid, state aid. Students who may be undocumented, they can get state aid. And then you kind of make that conversation a big, broad conversation, and let the students know, and let the students ask on their own. And this is important when you're having conversations with groups, because you don't want to out people, right? You don't want them to become visible and embarrass them, or even worse, alienate them from the rest of the community. So you throw out, cast the net, and let them know that all the resources are out there. When I go to the high schools, I always tell the counselors, I say, those students who need this information will get it. They will reach out, and then we'll have those private informations, because the worst thing I tell you at the high school is like for them to make an announcement over the, the PA system and say, all immigrant students, please report to the library, or go over, because they will be seen, and young people are not sometimes very caring or sensitive about things. So yeah, that's the thing, to be able to be informed to be able to educate your colleagues is important on the campus. Also to get the allyship from everyone, right? To facilitate. I have to confess my own ignorance, right? When I started back in 1996 and I started working with, allowing people to apply and letting them know that CUNY didn't require the status to be a student, I was all about access. Let them in. Let's get undocumented students in. Let's work it in. And we were working with a group of coalition students to get the word out that immigrant students were allowed to come to CUNY and pay in-state tuition, right? And for many years, we worked and, we were able to get community organization, churches, the consulates to know that this was possible, right? To working with where people were. And then I realized that, well, we get them in, but then they really don't have the financial support to continue, right? So they would apply, they will try, and then of course, they would just give up. So I started working, and I worked with my own community because that's the people that I knew. So I started within the Mexican community, and we started a scholarship program. We called it the Becas program, right? And we did some coalition with the Mexican consulate. We kind of got some private people to donate some funding, and we kind of started the conversation about investing in financing your education, right? So that was the second awakening that I had in terms of, we need to kind of support them. And then the other one was like, oh, we need to really get them through, right? It's not just about getting them in, giving them finances, but now guiding them to the steps that they need to know. They may be first generation. They really don't know how to navigate these waters. So opening up to the whole notion that we had to be present, right? My latest, break from ignorance was like, okay, so now they went to college, they're getting a degree. What's next? Well, they need to be placed into jobs. They need to be allowed to go into careers. How do we make that conversation while they're starting for them to become aware of the steps they need to take, especially for undocumented folks, right? How do we open up possibilities for people to graduate with a degree and make a living? And that's a conversation that's taking place across the board. And one of the initiatives that we started here at Brooklyn College was to be able to start off creating paid opportunities for undocumented students. So we started internships. Our Given Tuesday campaign is the Opportunity Fund is to get funding. Private funding can be given to undocumented students. So if you're looking for ways to say scholarships, stipends, things like that, we can use it from private funding. So there's where we need the partnership with the administration, right? The college has a foundation. Your college has a foundation. Let's talk to the funders and say, are you interested in supporting the most vulnerable students of our society at this moment? Are we able to provide funding for students to get experience, to get them some funding to continue with their education, and after graduation to fund the aspirations to either be independent contractors, to be able to go into grad school, whatever the student needs to do afterwards, but with some financial support. We're not alone. We have other folks now that are coming on board, and that kind of makes me better. If I can push this topic, maybe a yard, there'll be other folks going to push this a mile, because I know young people like you can make this better. So it is very, very helpful to see that and inspiring to see many folks out there to say, oh, look, we're going to get this done. And I think that it's necessary, not only for the immigrant population, but as a society. We need to really stand up for our values. I always talk about the importance of CUNY, right? And I talk about, the free academy and what it meant to be, is to provide an education that's high quality for all the children of New York City, right? So it's not just the few. It's not just the elite. It's for everyone. And if I was able to be blessed with this opportunity, I want everyone to have that opportunity.